Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be reacting to
Why America's economic crisis is worse than it looks. I don't think it's worse than it looks. It looks horrible.
This video
But
is
let's
brought
see.
to you by Nebula. The American economy isn't in great nick at the moment. Trump's tariffs have crippled the stock market, spooked international investors, and pushed the US towards recession. But the crisis is now spreading beyond the stock market. So, in this video, we're going to have a look at why the markets have responded so negatively to Trump's tariffs, and why this crisis is even worse than it looks at first glance. By subscribing to Trump's tariffs, because, well, usually tariffs don't provoke such severe reactions from markets. That's because while tariffs do have some negative economic consequences, they usually don't have that much of an immediate impact on GDP growth. If you put tariffs
I think maybe because of the amounts of like how big the tariffs were. It wasn't like, oh, let's put 5% tariff. That's gonna impact people, but yeah. Now we're slapping like random tariffs. Oh, 60% here, 40% here, 25% there. Like these are huge numbers to be throwing around like that.
tariffs on foreign cars, for instance, that's inconvenient for anyone who wants to import a cheap car from another country, because they have to buy a more expensive one that's manufactured domestically. But the consumer is actually spending more money than they would otherwise, and it's going to a domestic business, which can reinvest it or spend it on wages. Sure, the economy is less efficient, which will put a drag on growth in the longer term, and maybe increase inflation. But in the short term, there's not much of an impact.
I don't know.
Trump's tariffs
I don't see that because that's the trickle down economics. If the company was to make more money, they will then put it towards the wages, and we have seen in history that they don't. They just keep the profits themselves.
are different for at least two reasons.
Ooh, IT. Let's see IT. Where's
First,
IT?
their
Ooh,
scope
we
and
didn't show.
severity. Usually, when a country imposes tariffs, it's to protect a specific industry. Last year, for instance, the Biden administration put massive tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles in an attempt to protect American EV manufacturers from Chinese competitors like BYD and Xiaomi. Trump, however, has put a 10% tariff on everything and then higher tariffs
I
on
never
most
seen
of
any of
America's
those cars. They were successful, I guess.
The tariffs?
Yeah.
Seems like it.
trading partners, with only
Do
very
you
limited
recognize those car names? Those.
So first I learned about that tariff actually doing these Trump's things that apparently there was already existing tariff 100% there of Chinese vehicles, EV vehicles. I didn't know that. I recognize the brand names. I have not seen any of them on the road. And as I said in other videos, I do not know if I would feel comfortable driving a Chinese car. It's just the
I don't know
reputation
if I
that
see.
Chinese products have. I would not want to have any mission critical Chinese product personally. Like European, American, shit, Latin American, fine. Chinese, just a certain reputation they have that I don't want. Like, little gadgets that, your life don't depend on. It's whatever, I don't care. But something that you literally put your life on the line, I'd rather pay more and not buy Chinese than buy Chinese. That's just me though.
exemptions. This means America's average tariff rate is now just over 23%, 6 times what it was last year, and the highest in more than a century. This also means tariffs could backfire. While targeted tariffs might shield America from international competition, flat tariffs, like the ones Trump's imposed, will make
Now, I'm not saying, China can never make good goods. Maybe they can, but they need to work on fixing their reputation because right now, China is synonymous with poor quality,
all their imported components
cheap and poor quality.
more expensive, potentially making them less competitive overall. Second, the immense uncertainty involved. No one knows how long Trump's tariffs will last, what recipient countries have to do to get them off, or whether they'll go up or down in the future. The Federal Reserve's so-called Trade Policy Uncertainty Index is literally off the charts, the highest
To
it's
me,
ever
what's
been.
interesting is how quickly they can go with imposing it and then removing it.
Well, do you see who's the president?
Mm-hmm.
Same, like he just
Because all this power, it seems like he has this power to just decide that for the tariffs.
well, decide that. Then you can go through courts, sue. Maybe the judges put pause on it, but immediate like executive
But he
order.
seemed to decide it to pause it.
Yeah, he did decide to pause. Yeah. Yeah, sometimes feel like maybe he has ADHD or something.
Because to me, it seems like, okay, if he's saying, oh, people, then other countries were immediately calling him, they know, okay, they can't rely on or wait around to see what the courts are going to do to be challenged.
Yeah.
They seem to take a proactive response that they're even communicating amongst each other, okay, what should be the response.
Uncertainty is terrible for an economy because it encourages businesses and consumers to hide their money away instead of investing or spending. It's also terrible for Trump's stated project of reindustrialization because, well, reindustrializing America would require trillions of dollars of sustained investment.
It kind of feels like a pandemic, honestly, because it seems like at the stores people are shopping,
Fact, yeah.
yeah, buying more goods because they're waiting for
They're
prices
stocking
to
up.
go
Yeah,
up.
people
Yeah.
are stocking up at the stores. Yeah, they're anticipating the prices to go up. So we just
Mm-hmm.
went to a grocery store on Monday, not Monday, Tuesday. It was like basically double amount of people
Yeah,
than
for a
usually. Yeah, for a
Tuesday.
Tuesday, it was double. Yeah, because we shop like at the same time every week, so we know
What it looks
yeah,
like.
we know the trends. Like if it's a holiday coming up, more people, buying up
Mm-hmm.
for the holiday or whatever, like for
Mm-hmm.
Christmas, for New Year's, for Labor Day, whatever. Yeah, this felt like there was something going on. It wasn't a regular Tuesday.
Anyway, this is why markets have reacted so negatively to Trump's tariffs. Goldman Sachs, for instance, thinks a recession is more likely than not if Trump's tariffs take effect, up from
And
20%.
it reflects in the stock market too, because it simply takes him going on news or the news reporting it incorrectly for the stock market
Yeah.
to change and people's behavior
Yeah.
changes.
Yesterday, like the stock market was ridiculous. There were stocks are falling, then the news misannounced, I guess, that he's considering pausing. I think it went up $2 trillion in up the stocks, and then he tweeted out fake news. It went all the way down again. So it just kind of shows what the market. It's very volatile right now. It's
It
crazy.
should go up now.
Oh yeah, it's been up. Yeah, I've been getting notifications.
Month ago. Betting markets like Polymarket and Kalshi currently put the odds at over 60%, up from 20% in February. The looming threat of a recession has wrought havoc on the American stock market. The S&P 500, a weighted index of the 500 biggest American companies, is currently down about 20% from its February peak and is seesawing wildly. While it's true
Well,
that the stock
it's
market
interesting because as he reports it, it's not like real time. It's like not enough time where you can rely on what is put out on the internet.
What do you mean?
Because the news is like changing like within 5 minutes.
Oh, he's late.
When did he
He's
publish
late.
this?
In the morning.
In the
Yeah,
morning,
for him, because
it's not there
because the
anymore.
thing is they do high quality videos. So they
Yeah,
do all the
yeah.
like images, like
Mhm.
graphs. So it takes time for them to make the video. They're really like good at this. I like their videos a lot actually. They explain it very well. Whereas like other news people, they just talk on the news, so it's different.
isn't the
He
real
doesn't
economy,
just
this
talk.
American economy relies more than ever on demand from the richest 10% of earners, who now account for half of all
I
spending.
think what
and
they
whose
have to do is they have to switch their sleep schedule. They have to sleep in California time.
spending patterns are disproportionately affected by movements in the stock market. However, while the stock market decline and the prospect of a recession have clearly attracted the most media attention, peek under the proverbial bonnet and this crash starts to look even scarier. First, the media's focus on stocks obscures the worrying movements we're seeing in American government bonds, otherwise known as treasuries. Usually, during times of crisis, stocks decline, but treasuries rally as investors shift their money from risky stocks to safer bonds. This time, however, that's not happening. Instead, people are actually selling treasuries at the same time as stocks, which is why the yield on treasuries, in other words, the
I didn't know that. That's interesting.
interest that the US has to pay on its debt, is rising.
So this is basically saying it's not that people just pulling money out of the states, period.
Monday, for instance,
They're
the
going
yield on
overseas.
10-year treasuries rose from
Yeah, we
just below
saw that.
3.9%
With the different countries, yeah.
to just below 4.2%, which is a pretty enormous single-day movement for treasuries. This is bad news for Trump for two reasons. First, it suggests that investors no longer see the US as a safe place to park their money. And second, it will put even more strain on America's precarious fiscal position. As we've detailed in previous videos, and as you probably already know, the federal government has an enormous debt burden, representing something like 120% of GDP, and is currently running a massive deficit of around 6% of GDP. Things already look like they'd get worse under Trump, because he wants trillions of dollars in tax cuts without equivalent spending cuts, and Doge has failed to really make a dent in the budget. But if the US
Did he actually wear that cheese hat, or are they just putting it on him?
I don't know.
slips into recession, which means lower tax revenues and treasury yields stay high because investors no longer see treasuries as a safe recession-proof asset, a full-blown debt crisis could be on the cards. Something similar has happened to the dollar as well. Like treasuries, the dollar used to be seen as a safe haven asset, which meant that it usually rallied during times of uncertainty, even while American stocks were falling. Most analysts also thought Trump's tariffs would put upwards pressure on the dollar, both because, again, it's seen as a safe asset, but also because Trump's tariffs will probably have more of a negative impact on America's trading partners than on America, which would put downwards pressure on their currencies and therefore boost the dollar. However, that's not what's happened. As you can sort of see from looking at this chart, which...
Why?
Because...
I mean, listen, nothing you can do, okay? It's just gotta...
measures the dollar's strength against a basket of other currencies, the dollar has actually been falling for the past few months. Again, this is bad news because it suggests global confidence in the dollar is waning, but also because it threatens to stoke inflation. One of the reasons people thought Trump could essentially get away with his tariffs was because even if they introduced some friction into America's trading relationships, which would in theory stoke inflation, this could be mostly offset by the subsequent strengthening of the dollar, which would make all imports cheaper for the average American. A weak dollar, however, threatens to actually exacerbate any tariff-induced inflation, which is why analysts are now fretting about the possibility of inflation going back up to the 5% range. If this happens, not only would it be terrible for American consumers, it would also set Trump up for a showdown with the Federal Reserve, with Trump pushing for interest rate cuts to stimulate growth, and the Fed pushing for pauses or even hikes to stem inflation. And if Trump were to steamroll or ignore the Fed in...
He's saying if the situation continues, there would be a disagreement, yeah. Well, honestly, so who runs the Fed? I don't know if the Fed is like a separate organization from the government. Kind of always thought that they were like one and the same. No, part of the government. It seems like they have like a different set of people working behind the scenes.
In some way, which feels increasingly likely, we could see a crisis of confidence more severe than anything in modern history. This story, like much of the...
Okay.
Can I see the comments, please?
Sure. Update: since we wrote and animated this video, the route in treasury markets has gone significantly worse within the yield, rising to peak of 4.5%.
See, that 10 hours ago is not even valid anymore.
It's very volatile right now. What's going on? Yeah. Born too late to experience Great Depression. Born just in time to experience Great Depression. Okay. I guess trying to make a joke. You're gonna get tired of winning. This is not an economic crisis. This is a stupidity crisis that's impacting economics. Seems like it, yeah. The year is 2027. I'm a tech smuggler running eggs, toilet paper, Nintendo Switches, and other contraband from Canada into the doomed lawless. Honestly, brings a very interesting point. So Canada doesn't have the China tariffs. So what if people import to Canada and smuggle it, or Mexico smuggle this across the border? That's actually, I didn't even think about it. That brings a valid point now to make smuggling alive. That's crazy. Because right now in China, 104% tariff. That's ridiculous. That's double the price. If you smuggle it, take a 10-20% to pay, it's still way cheaper. Wow.
Guys, of course, let us know your thoughts. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Join the Discord. And as always, share as much kindness as possible.